Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a great day and welcome back to the Polyhedra Show. So today we're diving into zero-knowledge machine learning, or zkML, a groundbreaking innovation that sits at the intersection of cryptography and AI. zkML isn't just a buzzword, it's a technology with the potential to redefine trust in a digital world driven by data. So today with us, we have Zhihang Zhang. He is the co-founder and chief scientist at Polyhedra. He graduated from Berkeley with his PhD, where he studied under the renowned Dawn Song. He is very much at the forefront of cryptography, zero-knowledge proofs, and zkML, having co-authored the pioneering 2020 paper, Zero-Knowledge Proofs for Decision Tree Predictions and Accuracy. As Polyhedra's chief scientist, Zhihang is turning theory into practice and unlocking a myriad of possibilities and exciting breakthroughs. Today with us, we also have Morgan Takash. She is a commercial strategy lead at Polyhedra, also a Berkeley graduate with a consulting background. Morgan has a gift for bridging the gap between innovation and impact. She has a knack for building partnerships and ensuring that the groundbreaking ideas at Polyhedra don't just stay in the lab, but they empower individuals and businesses. So today, yes, we're going to be exploring the hows and whys of zkML, how it works, why it matters, and the transformative potential that it holds. So thank you very much for joining us today, Morgan, and of course, Zhihang.
Hi, everyone.
Cool, guys. So I'd really like to kick things off by talking about your stories. So we'll start with you, Zhihang. Your career is really one of those fascinating ones that bridges groundbreaking research with real-world impact. You've gone from publishing cryptography papers and co-founding Polyhedra, which is transforming industries. I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about your work and your background and what inspired you to study cryptography? What's your main reason for your research and your passion?
Okay, great. Thanks for your question. Actually, my journey in cryptography started during my undergraduate years when I realized that the critical role of security in the digital world. And I studied cryptography, blockchain during my undergraduate. I did my undergraduate in Shanghai. Then I spent a wonderful year at Cornell in my last year of my undergraduate with Professor Yilan Shi. So we know Yilan Shi is a cryptographer. So I can start to do some research on Bitcoin, Ethereum consensus, and all of these things related to blockchain. I'd say, okay, that is so great. And I decided to continue my study. So I applied for PhD programs, and finally I decided to join Dawn's group in UC Berkeley. And during my PhD students, with the rapid rise of the blockchain technology, I became fascinated by the technology of zero-knowledge proofs. I think they're great, they're wonderful, because they offer a powerful way to achieve both security and efficiency. It's very useful, not only in the blockchain, also in the other areas, including machine learning. And then I started to work on this. And fortunately, I published many papers together with Tianchen, who is the co-founder and the CTO at Polyhedra. And we work on scalable and efficient zk protocols. We published many papers, including Libra, Virgo, and Pianist. And we also work on the application side of the zk. We work on zk on blockchain. We have zk bridge. And I also started, the new area. Currently, it's very well-known, the zkML. I published the first paper in 2020. So the zk for decision tree. This starts a new era of zkML. And currently, my main research passion still lies in the advancing the boundaries of cryptography to enable trustless systems. And at Polyhedra, I have focused on creating solutions, the real-world solutions, including zk bridge, which use the zero-knowledge proof to enhance the interoperability as well as the scalability across different ecosystems. And I also continue to explore the area of zkML. So in Polyhedra, we also have some great works on zkML. Yeah.
Brilliant. I think I speak for all of us when I say we're all very grateful that you got so inspired with zero knowledge and you've done the work that you've done. Definitely all of us at Polyhedra, but I think the wider industry as well. The work that you've done is very, very It's brilliant. It's very inspiring, and we're all glad that you're leading the way with it. Oh, we've just lost Morgan. I was just about to shoot across to Morgan to get her to tell us little bit about her backstory. Oh, here she is. 1 second, I'll get her back. Hey, Morgan, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I don't know what that was, but it's my time.
It's technical difficulties with the live stream. It always happens. No one's immune. But Morgan, I'd like to continue with the stories. So your role, very much at Polyhedra, is about taking these cutting edge technologies and making them resonate with businesses and peoples, and you're fantastic at doing so. How did you first become involved with Polyhedra? And if you were to be explaining Polyhedra or your role and your background to, say, someone at a dinner party or someone scrolling on TikTok, how would you put it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think there's a couple different questions there. I came to Polyhedra actually in slightly a roundabout way. So I personally came from the Web 2 world. I was working in strategy consulting at a firm, working a lot with large kind of enterprise, retail clients, finance clients as well. And a lot of that is what we've been focusing on the past year or so at Polyhedra. Now, when it comes to describing Polyhedra to folks, at a dinner party or TikTok or whatever, I think we really are positioning ourselves now as a company for the future of intelligence, right? So we're providing new ways to increase access to assets, right, through interoperability, which is our foundation. But now we're also focusing on making scale, speed, and cost better for companies through our solutions. And I think that's not just Web3 companies, but Web2 companies as well that are starting to learn that they can implement blockchain tech, zk tech, in new and novel ways. So our focus has really been making these highly specialized zero knowledge protocols and algorithms, which used to be sequestered at the top of research echelons, right? Making those more accessible to companies and even independent developers across the globe. So we've done that through a couple different initiatives and products up until now. But overall, we really just want to be a beacon of responsible use in this industry to kind of help bridge that gap between more traditional Web 2 players and the opportunities that await them in Web 3.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And both of you guys, obviously, I love hearing origin stories of our team members. And I know that our community certainly does too. Just building on what you've just said there, Morgan, what are some of the things that the team is working on or building right now that we may not have heard yet?
Sure, definitely. So I think there's, and Jahang will get into this a little bit further and more of a technical perspective further on. But if you see our roadmap that we talked about last week, for example, there's things like zk PyTorch, which is zkML development framework, which is just starting to kind of come into the public eye a little bit more. Proof of intelligence is the phrase we're using to describe EXP chain with ML capability, which will be something that we can touch on today from the ML perspective. And even proving the full consensus of Ethereum is something that is on our roadmap now, and kind of big goals like that we definitely have the technical expertise to undertake.
Awesome. And yeah, you did just mention it. So I think this is a really, really great segue for you, Jahang. In particular, we know that Polyhedra is indexing strongly on zkML right now. So can you walk us through some of your work on zkML?
Sure, I have mentioned previously, but I can say it again. So zkML has been a significant focus of our efforts in Polyhedra, and I'm the first author for the first paper in the area of zkML, and the paper is the zero knowledge proof for decision tree model. So this is the first time we use the technology of zk to guarantee the validity of the inference of machine models. So as you can imagine, in zkML, we do something with the machine models. They are very powerful, but we can know, we don't know the integrity and validity of the machine models. So what we want is that we can validate the model inferences. And how to validate? We have the technology of zero knowledge proof. So I just thought we can apply this technology to machine models and to address the validity and security issues. And at the same time, we can keep the privacy, right? Because zk has a property of zero knowledge, which keeps the privacy. And this is first work. And if you apply the same concept to wider models. You can apply the same technology to more complicated models, including CNN, DNN, ImageNet, and also large language models, right? So currently at Polyhedra, we are also explore how to extend this technology to transformers, large language models, because they are very popular and we need the technology. And we have some new techniques to make the protocol scalable and efficient, even for very, very large complicated models like transformers and GPT. And we also deployed zkPytorch, as Morgan mentioned. And this is a general framework for zkML, and we also want to make it user-friendly, and everyone can download our model, can try our framework, and contribute to zkML, to zkPytorch. And yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Makes a lot of sense. And I think you touched on it there. Like, obviously, there's some new stuff that you're working on. I don't know if you can speak more to that. Obviously, there's some new techniques. You're definitely at the forefront of this. I'm sure that yeah, you're doing a lot of work in the background. Is this confidential? Can you share any of that with us?
You mean the technology? No, not confidential, but it's very technique. Like,
Of course,
complicated models, we have different layers. Some are linear layers, like matrix multiplication. So we have to have some, new techniques to address very large or large scale, like linear layers matrix multiplication. And for nonlinear functions, like ReLU normalization, we have some new protocols to address these different problems. And finally, we need to integrate all of them together and do some system optimizations. So that's a general idea, but it still has some many technical issues I don't have time to describe here.
Of course, yeah, of course. I think we could probably do an entire series on each one of the verticals that you just mentioned, and you definitely have the knowledge to do it. But obviously, for the sake of this live stream, we might try and keep it a little bit short and brief for the sake of all of us. So in terms of your vision for the direction of zkML, I know that you just touched on, like LLMs being one, and also like all of the different, the verticals of AI. Do you see the direction of zkML contributing to each one of these?
You mean the technology contribute separately to zk area and the AI area?
Yeah, absolutely. And like the different, so image generation, for example, or LLMs.
Yeah, I think this area itself is an intersection between the two important sub areas of AI and the zk. And actually, they can contribute like both of the areas. So for zero-knowledge proof, definitely zkML provides a new playground for zk. That means zk will be very useful in our real world, because in real world applications, many people in the world will use the AI. So if we have such technology and we can apply it to the AI, it can contribute to the area of AI, and many people will use it. And it's also useful for the technology zk itself. It creates a new applications, and we have to create some specific tailored protocols for such a specific applications. So
absolutely, yeah. And obviously zkML is extremely exciting. But you have led the charge in zero knowledge proofs as well. Obviously zk Bridge has been a stellar success, and it is the benchmark in the industry. Can you explain a little bit, say at like a high level, how zero knowledge proof technology can enable things such as private transactions?
Okay, so for private transactions, actually zero knowledge proof technology, we know it enables private transaction by allowing parties to prove that a transaction is valid, such as ensuring the seller has sufficient funds, the transaction complies with the rules of the system, and the recipient receives the funds without revealing any sensitive details about the transaction itself. And for example, in a blockchain setting, a zero knowledge proof can confirm that the total value of the input equals to the total value of the output, and no double spending occurred. So all while keeping the sender, recipient, and the transaction amount hidden from the public. And this preserves the user privacy without sacrificing the security or integrity of the system. That's how it works, the zk for private transactions.
Brilliant, brilliant. And obviously what we're talking about here is trust, and it's so important, and like from governance to finance, like relationships, it's a cornerstone of pretty much everything we do in life. So, it's really exciting because it's the underpinning of trust in this new economy that is emerging, which is obviously very, very exciting. Makes me super passionate to be able to work alongside you guys too. Morgan, I might bring you back in here because you'll definitely have some insights. Just in terms of what Jehang has just been saying, how does the capability or these capabilities translate to products for, say, banks or enterprises? And like how do you balance privacy concerns with this need for transparency and auditability in these environments?
Yeah, certainly. So I think the first kind of distinguishing point here is we're kind of talking about two separate solutions or technologies which are very much related, right? We have zkML on one hand, and then we also have the ability to make transactions in, for example, a banking environment more private. So those are, again, not necessarily always 100% the same, similar from a privacy perspective that kind of comes into play. I would say, for both, there's a slightly different answer. I would say when it comes to zkML, right, one of the things that we've been talking about from a trust and privacy perspective is, the ability to make sure that underlying data or training data, that is sensitive information is not revealed, right? So from that perspective, I think it makes sense for a lot of companies why you would want that as privacy becomes an increasing concern. I think for transactions specifically, that's where we get a little bit more of the wariness, right? Because when a lot of Web 2 companies think about blockchain, they think about open ledgers, they think you can see every detail of every transaction. And one of the things our team and Jiaheng in particular have been working on is the ability to selectively obfuscate information where necessary. So this would be in a controlled environment, usually, right, like a network between different exchanging banks, or other institutions. And essentially they would be able to make sure that someone else in the network would not be able to see the money transferred or the specific people transferring for a transaction between two members. So that operates in a way that's actually a lot more similar to the interbank transactions we do nowadays, right? If you log into your banking platform or app and you send money to a friend through Zelle or Bank of America, it's essentially that same functionality, except we're enabling it in a blockchain environment in a way that is secured with zero knowledge. So that's kind of the approach there. And I think for banks and enterprises, this becomes really important when you look at the fact that they need to be audited. Financial institutions in particular, but any large conglomerate that's international is going to have auditing of the money that transfers in and out of the org, right? Everything kind of going on that ledger is open season. And so they need to be able to share with governing bodies, regulatory bodies, compliance organizations, certain aspects of that are already shared in modern day and Web 2 cases.
Yeah, wow. Very, very deep insight. And thank you so much for sharing it. Yeah, again, it makes a lot of sense, and it's obviously so vital. And listening to you talk there, there's just, my brain is just running hot. There's a lot. I'd like to stick on this vein here. So with commercial and market activity, regarding our current positioning, how would you say that Polyhedra differentiates itself from other blockchain companies, specifically those that are working on scalability and interoperability solutions?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that part of the thing that we're focusing on now is kind of branching out, right? We did begin as strongly an interoperability focused company with our cross-chain bridging, and that was really our claim to fame for good reason. It's an excellent product, an excellent suite of solutions that can really help folks gain access to different assets and liquidity. From that perspective, I think now we're really differentiating through our technological expertise. We have Jahin here. I know a lot of the audience have already met our CTO, Tiancheng. We just have a very strong cryptography team, which is really innovating to keep kind of those speed and scalability improving through our products constantly. And beyond that, I think branching out as we have done recently from an interoperability focus and just being like, hey, we're kind of crossing assets across different chains, to really being focused on AI and ML, which is the future of where many industries are going right now, I think is really helping to position us with a strong foothold for the next innovations in the industry.
Absolutely. When you're talking to these companies and you're translating a lot of this technical aspects of the business, what would you say has been the biggest hurdle that you've come across in getting, whether it's companies or developers to adopt like blockchain infrastructure in general, or deep cryptography products like Polyhedra?
Right. I think it's probably education, in the sense of there's not a ton of information out there on how companies can utilize ZK in particular, but definitely not some more advanced zero knowledge products and applications, right? So from a developer perspective, there are plenty of independent developers who are really gung-ho on the tech, who might be kind of in back channels, working on GitHub on obscure things and figure these things out. I think for larger companies that honestly have a lot of the resources to be able to pour into this kind of development, surprisingly, sometimes they still are a little bit nervous, not sure how to first start approaching that. So a lot of what we're focusing on right now, both from the developer perspective and from a company perspective, is really that education. You can see that in some of our upcoming initiatives. For example, we've talked before on here about our new bootcamp for Expander, which is our backend system, really putting some more power into developers' hands to understand how our tech works, understand where you can apply it. And the same thing goes for companies, although I will say when it comes to an enterprise that wants to utilize blockchain tech, usually we have a more bespoke approach for that, right? We'll have meetings, try to more deeply understand their current infrastructure, both in terms of general tech as well as if they've included blockchain at all, or machine learning if they're working on that. So we'll have kind of those more customized, bespoke conversations with them to really understand not only what issues they're trying to solve, but also what equipment they already have in place, right? Because there's hardware components to consider. There's, of course, software components to consider as well. And it's by no means something that is insurmountable, right? We definitely want to kind of be there to collaborate and to bring this next wave of large companies into kind of this area of innovation. And I think we're quite poised to do so. But I think a lot of it from that perspective of kind of the challenge has really been being able to have the conversations and make sure people understand what exactly it is that we do. Because I think a lot of the older guard sometimes think of all of blockchain as crypto, right? Or a coin, or a token, which, it's not. And there's so much more to it, from, preserving the privacy of transaction data to, healthcare applications. We've even talked about, tokenizing bonds and other securities on chain. So there's obviously a very broad range there in terms of what we as a company are capable of, but also what the larger industry is capable of. And I think that kind of education component is really what we need to seal the deal in these cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key word there is education, right? Education. And something people may not know about Yu Jiahang is in addition to being the co-founder of Polyhedra, writing all of these amazing papers, groundbreaking work, writing the benchmark paper, if not the benchmark paper for zkML. But you're also a professor at the National University of Singapore. I'd love to get your perspective on that. As a professor, and obviously you're training the next generation of innovators. What changes do you see happening as an educator with this kind of tech, AI in general, zkML? How do you see it affecting that industry?
Yeah, I'm also a professor, so I need to teach. Yeah, every year, every semester, and I have lots of students, and all the students are very, very great. They're super smart. They study AI, cryptography, and computer science in general. And then you can see they are very curious about these new technologies. Like AI, we have ChatGPT, right? Everyone knows large model and ChatGPT, so they want to know the principle and the underlying principle and how to use it. And And that's very important. And this also, brings some change for the um, education style, right? You cannot use like a very hard problems because students can just use GPT to solve this problem easily.
Right,
So
right.
you have to tell them how to think about the problems and from different perspectives, and you just let them know what you think is the future technology like AI, zkML. Then they can explore more. I think that's very important for the new styles of education. People, students don't want to solve some very hard mathematical problem. They want to know the underlying principles, and they want to know these new emerging areas, and they want to explore by themselves. And it can also contribute to the industry, the KML and the blockchain. Since we have students will graduate and look for jobs, then they can join in this industry and they can bring in their new perspectives, their new technology. I think that's great.
Yeah, brilliant. That is great. It's very inspiring, like thinking about the next generation, like what you guys are already doing. And then now you're sharing that knowledge with the next generation of innovators. And I'm sure there'll be some pioneers that you'll be teaching as well. Hopefully they'll come on board with Polyhedra, and I'm sure with you at the helm, they're more than likely to do so. I'd just like to get back to what we were just talking about though, Morgan. So in terms of the commercial and market activity side, how does Polyhedra approach balancing innovation and market demand? Like, are there instances, say, where the team had to pivot or adjust, based on the realities of the market?
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, I think that's certainly been a component for us. I think a lot of companies see the same. Part of the reason for that is just the speed of, change and innovation in this industry. I mean, last year, Bitcoin ecosystem was huge. It still is in some ways, but there's always one thing of the moment in any particular season that really gets a ton of attention and surge. And then, folks often move on to something else by the next year. So that means kind of as a byproduct, we do have to constantly be evaluating ourselves, evaluating what we're developing and saying, hey, is there really still a product market fit for that, right? In our case, yes, that has kind of happened, but we also shift the product's uses. So for example, we have some technology that because ZK, can be applied to different areas, we can tailor it slightly to fit a new niche. And that's something that I think has been really helpful for our team in the sense of being able to adapt to these changes as they come, the new demands as they come, and saying, hey, what do we currently have in our portfolio that could be utilized in a new and more powerful way, make a few tweaks accordingly, and bring it into that new environment.
Totally. And in an industry, as we all know, that just moves exponentially quicker and quicker, it's obviously very important to be able to pivot and, of course, have the proper groundwork, the proper foundation to do so. And obviously businesses building on EXP chain are going to have that. We've already seen, other layer ones, other chains that, almost seem like outdated. The technology is just moves so quickly, or they don't have the same native integrations. We touched on that on Tuesday's show, and it was really, really interesting to sort of look at it from that perspective. So I'd really like to pivot a little bit here. Speaking of pivoting, and look at future. Like, let's look at the future outlook and some lessons on. So Jiahang, I'll throw this one back to you. So in the past few months, Polyhedra has shifted from focusing mostly on ZK interoperability to a more broad and far-reaching focus on AI and the future of intelligence. How does the algorithmic backbone of Polyhedra's current portfolio support that growth?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And this shift reflects our belief in the convergence of blockchain, zero-knowledge proofs, and AI as fundamental technologies for the future of intelligence. And the algorithmic backbone of Polyhedra's portfolio, rooted in zero-knowledge proofs, of course, provides a unique framework by addressing key challenges in AI, such as data privacy, trust, and security. For example, zkBridge and zkML are built on same principles of verifiable computation, enabling secure and private data exchange across systems. And zkML, in particular, demonstrates how zero-knowledge technology can validate machine outputs without exposing sensitive input data or model details. And this capability is critical for the next wave of AI adoption, where trust and accountability will be just as important as performance. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So obviously, yeah, like a massive cornerstone in or foundation in the future of AI development. But how do you see the evolution of blockchain infrastructure, and what role do you think Polyhedra's tech will play in this future?
Okay, I think the evolution will be defined by greater scalability, interoperability, and integration with other technologies like AI and maybe IoT, Internet of Things. In the coming years, I expect to see a shift from the blockchains to interconnected ecosystem, the solid blockchain to the interconnected ecosystems where data and value can flow seamlessly across networks and applications. And Polyhedra's technology is uniquely positioned to drive this transformation. So for one, zkBridge provides a secure, trustless interoperability needed to connect different blockchain networks. As the demand for cross-chain communication grows, zkBridge will become the cornerstone of the blockchain ecosystem. And furthermore, with zkML and other privacy-preserving solutions, Polyhedra is enabling blockchain to play a more active role in AI and data-driven applications. This is critical. This is critical for industries like healthcare, finance, and maybe supply chain, where trust and transparency are very important. And in the long term, I envision a future where blockchain infrastructure is invisible to the end user, but powers a vast network of intelligence decentralized systems. And Polyhedra's tech will be central to this future, providing the tools to ensure these systems are secure, scalable, and interoperable while maintaining privacy and trust. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree completely. I think that it was really the promise of Web3, and although it's and that's why it's so important to do the infrastructure work. Talking about how you explain it to, I asked you this question earlier, Morgan, but like how you explain these concepts to somebody, say at a dinner party on TikTok. I like to say it's kind of like the foundation of a skyscraper, right? Like you don't necessarily see it, but it's so essential for the building of everything that comes after it, and the ability for all of the transactions to be, like you've just said, Jiahang, like for it to be invisible and just working as the engine that's running these economies and these industries is really where it's heading. And what has been missing is that trust, that ability for trust and verification. So really, really exciting that our stack and everything that you guys have done has, it's enabled that future to become a reality. So I for one am super excited. I know our community is so strong, and the reason why it's so strong is for that exact reason. So getting back to the future, I might shoot one back to you, Morgan. We launched a technical roadmap, and we spoke in depth about it last week. But can you tell us more about Polyhedra's direction and focus for the future, say in regards to partnerships?
Yeah, definitely. So I quickly do want to touch on what you were just saying about infra, though, because describing it as an engine, because I think that that's a really apt analogy. A lot of times infra isn't the first thing that's considered. It's not the most obvious or the most visible part of the ecosystem. So I think especially to newcomers, again, whether individuals or larger groups or projects, it's not the first thing that's thought of. And it really is definitely foundation. So we want to kind of be seen as that. I think with regards to partnerships, there's not a one size fits all approach. it does really vary depending on the product and the company or project itself. Historically, like other blockchain companies, we've done, of course, a lot of collaboration partnerships within the Web3 ecosystem, with zkBridge, with our chain. Now we're really focusing kind of for the next time being on increasing our EXP chain. So for example, we're looking for gaming and AI companies who want that cross-chain interoperable focus for EXP chain. And then for zkML and private transactions specifically, we're also expanding there, although the use cases for that are slightly different, right? It's a little bit less of necessarily a gaming focus, maybe, for example, and more towards companies that are already employing ML to a certain standpoint or experimenting in that area.
Yeah, gotcha. So you're talking about very specific areas of the business. So the technology and strategy, obviously there's the broader application and there's more specific, applications. And it is obviously a case by case on how we deploy that. Can you explain how the technical and the commercial teams work together to ensure that Polyhedra solutions, they're not only solving real world problems, but they're also viable in a commercial sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think this also relates a little bit to what we were talking about earlier when we were discussing, pivoting, right? Whether that's a product or kind of a service more broadly. I think a lot of it comes down to the vetting process and also stress testing, both internally and the real world. That comes from a lot of my background in consulting was really focused on that, when we're looking at an idea of something versus the actual practical execution of it. So how that looks for us when we're doing this experimentation is, taking the developments that have been done in research and saying, where is this going to be most valid and most useful in the real world? At a certain point, I think there's some desire to increase speed and increase scale just for the purpose of doing it, right? And I think what we want to do is, yes, we do want to have the fastest backend system. Yes, we do want to have a lightning fast L1 with a lot of applications, but we also want that to be something that is utilized in the real world and actually actionable for projects or Web2 companies. So we test that internally on a regular basis, kind of asking ourselves, what's the use case for this? What's the application for this? And making sure that we're taking it to the right places and having those conversations.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. And how would you say that you evaluate whether a potential partner is, say, aligned with Polyhedra's goals and the broader vision of our stack? Obviously, there's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different applications, but is there any kind of process that you have around that?
For vetting their alignment with our vision and our future?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of it, we're pretty open-minded, right? We definitely are wanting to, as I mentioned earlier, bring kind of more of these Web2 old guard in. We really want to expand access to zk. So companies that are kind of open-minded and trying to work with that is something that we encourage. From an actual technical perspective, there's of course limitations there too, which maybe Jiaheng or someone from more technical background can go kind of deeper into the details there. But of course, we do have to make sure that there are either team members on their side that know how to use the tech or can learn it, or that they have the hardware and software necessary to support some of the solutions. Some of that we can also help with, right? We can deploy in different ways as well. So it's not necessary that a project or company we're working with is a full zk expert in every way like we are. But definitely making sure that there are some kind of footholds in place there to help facilitate that transition.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, guys, thank you so much. This has been really, really insightful conversation. I've just been scrolling through some of the questions from our community as we've been chatting. Again, there's just been a bunch. Every single time we do this show, there are so many questions. I've previously promised to roll over a few, but yeah, there's just a lot that are specifically aimed at you guys, and I'd really like to touch on them. So this first one, I think that you can really touch on, Jiaheng, because it's directed for you. So what inspired you to focus on zero knowledge machine learning in your research and development?
You mean what inspired me?
Yeah. You said that you were obviously you're very passionate about zk. Was there anything in particular?
Yeah, because back to 2020 during my PhD, I like zk. Zk is a fantastic technology. But what's the most popular topics in these days? I think there's still AI. So I'm also very interested in the technology of AI. But for my colleagues or classmates, they have done many years research on AI. So I just want to also do some research, but from new perspectives. So I think maybe we can combine the technology of zk and AI, and how and we just want to see what can we do with zk for AI. Then we have the zkML.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's natural.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you definitely saw the future there, I think, because a lot people say that like a lot of breakthroughs in technology come from like a personal, interaction with a problem and overcoming a problem, and that is the case with so many startups and so many like groundbreaking technologies. But this one really seems like you saw the field of what was about to happen, and you solved a problem that no one was really like aware of yet. So that's yeah, exactly. It's a very different story, and it's really, really cool. You don't hear that too often. So yeah, kudos to you, man. That's really, really cool.
Thank you.
Just continuing with, obviously you are an educator. What advice would you give to startups looking to innovate in the field of machine learning?
You mean the next step for machine learning, or so?
Or just like say for your students or startups looking to innovate in the field, like what would be your advice?
You mean some new projects related to AI, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think there are many things you can do. Security, privacy are very important. You can still developing tools to address these problems. I think you can also work on AI safety. Right now we have many agents, but this agent may be dangerous because you have to guarantee the safety, and also you don't want these agents to steal you private data. So you also want to keep it privacy. So if you have such a tool to guarantee security and privacy for AI agents, that is great. And also, I think governance and regulation is also very important. If you work on this aspect and have some new startup, I think it's also promising. That is my thought.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's some really, really valuable advice for anyone that is looking to, to start up or even learn like what track you want to take in the field. Obviously, we have the Explore Expander Bootcamp that's going to be, looking at a few different verticals as well, and so I think that you've touched on that there, and I think that's again really valuable information. So thank you so much for sharing your advice. We have another one from the community here for you, Morgan. So this one is, as someone at the forefront of zkML strategy, what would you say are the unsolved mysteries or grand challenges that, if solved, could propel zkML from niche research to mainstream adoption? Are there any exciting new directions that you're exploring?
That's a great question. I love that. I would say the answer to new directions that we're exploring 100%, that would be our roadmap. You can find our roadmap, which if you missed the conversation last week, it's on our docs. If you also just Google or internet search Polyhedra Network roadmap, it'll come up as one of the first Twitter answers. So you can really kind of look in detail there if you're more curious about kind of the longer term plan. We do have quite a bit in the zkML pipeline, and we kind of lay that out really nicely there. I'll say the first part of the question was like the challenges. Can you remind me?
It was just like, what would you say are the unsolved mysteries or grand challenges? Yeah.
Unsolved mysteries or grand challenges. Definitely. I mean, I think one of the things, right, is like when you hear zkML together, if you're not familiar, it sounds like a buzzword, right? It's a catchy name. It's these four letters. You're like, okay, is this just the flavor of the week? But it's really more than that. It's really much more powerful than zk alone or ML alone. Combining the two technologies opens up a whole host of new possibilities. So I think, a lot of it is around that trust and making sure that that trust is there, we really want to be associated with that, not only more broadly as a company, but also zkML, I think, can really help with that. You know, a lot of companies who might be a great fit for incorporating blockchain tech like zkML are also understandably the most cautious, because innovative zkML tech isn't as well understood in these sectors. So a lot of it, again, is kind of coming back to that, empowering that sense of trust through our users, through devs, our dev community, as well as through these other companies. And that's kind of been a little bit more of the challenge coming there.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think you've touched on it really beautifully. You know, throughout this conversation, that education is really the cornerstone, and once people understand how the technology works and the benefits of it, it's, you know, it's there's really no other option. Is the way that I've seen it, and anything else out there, I don't really see any viable alternatives. So again, I think you're right. It does come down just to education and spreading the word, which I must say, you know, you're doing beautifully, and you translate that for us really, really, really well. So I appreciate that and your insights. Zhihang, I've got a question that's directed straight at you again, man. What cryptographic techniques are most critical for ensuring efficient and secure zkML systems?
I think the most let me think. I think the technology is zkML itself. You know, because you need to design a tailored system for machining. So you cannot use like general zk protocols, but you need to design some specific zk protocols for ML. So the most you know, the most critical technology is zkML itself.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure that there's I'm sure that there's some very deep cryptographic methods that you if you guys want to know, I know a lot of the community are asking, but you probably will have to go and attend some of Zhihang's lectures. And if you do have a background, I'm sure that there's ways to do a deep dive on that.
Well, also really, here. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say a lot of our proofs are available online. If you go to our website, a lot of Zhihang's research, we have our docs there. So for those who are craving the more technical conversation, you can read those papers on our website, polyhedra.network.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Morgan. I might just jump to a bit more of a broad question here that I really love to ask. So for you guys, let's say you've got your vision board hanging on your wall. Let's say for the next year at Polyhedra, what would you say is number one on that vision board for you? Like, what's the goals? What are we looking at this year?
I'll let Zhihang go first if you want.
I think you can go first. Just from the market perspective.
Is it
because
how many people are we onboarding?
I believe people don't care too much about technology, but they care about marketing.
The vision is probably a little different for both of us too. I think it's probably interconnected. What I would really like to see, I think, for the company, and in the spirit of the zkML conversation we've been having today, is actually getting that in the hands of some big players. I'm currently in San Francisco. Our team is all over the world. You know, we've definitely got an international presence. Here in San Francisco, AI is, you know, a big focus right now. I don't want to say trend because I think it's here to stay. So it's a great place to be having those conversations. I have those conversations on a daily basis here with folks in the industry. So we're really trying to actually get that in the hands of people who can use it. And so my vision for Polyhedra in the next year is to see that come to life, I think.
Awesome. And Zhihang, I'd say that yours is very similar. Maybe even some of your maybe more students would be great, or more people adopting it and learning these cryptographic methods. It's so important, right?
Yeah, that's our aim for the next year. So we hope we can educate people, and we can do deep research in the zk AI and zkML. We want more people to know the technology and more people to use our code to read our paper, and and everyone will agree that zkML is a promising future direction. I think that's all. That's enough.
Absolutely, very. Yeah, that's enough. There's just so much rolling out and so many new developments. It's just going to be, like, from my perspective, it's going to be a very wild ride of a year. I'm anticipating, obviously, a lot more broader adoption. We've got a lot going on in the pipeline. As Morgan has touched on as well, you guys there's a whole bunch of resources. I know I'm reading the questions here again, guys. So just come in so hard and fast. I've had to pick out a few. I hope that during this conversation, we have covered a lot of that for you guys. Again, there are more technical ones, but as Morgan has pointed out, there are a lot of resources that you can go to and listen to all of the amazing insights that Polyhedra has and the team has collected. So, guys, I think we're going to have to wrap it up. We're coming on an hour. I know you both have very, very busy days ahead again, but personally, this has been such an insightful conversation. So thank you so much for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing your passion. And, thank you for taking us behind the scenes a little bit at Polyhedra and the incredible work that's going on. So I think that we've all definitely walked away with a new or better understanding of zkML and its potential to shape the future. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Anthony. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, great conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And thank you again so much to the community, everyone that's tuned in live. We really appreciate it. We've really loved all the comments. I'm just going to say, guys, all the comments coming through, a lot of love for both of you as well. Some really fantastic answers, really, really insightful. Everyone's getting around it. Our community obviously is always great, and everyone loves to get involved. So we appreciate it. And yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's stay curious. And join us next time, as we continue to talk all things Polyhedra, zero knowledge, and the frontiers of technology, and of course, the future of intelligence. So thank you, guys. Have an awesome day.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.